PTB for update 7.0 was over this Monday, and I expect that developer news regarding the changes from PTB to live will arrive this Friday. In the meantime, let me tell you about the PTB. We'll cover every important aspect: new map, new perks, new killer, item logic rework, and finally balance changes to certain killers and perks. Timestamps are down below. Oh, and don't mind my face, most of the footage was taken from my PTB stream. Starting off, we have the new map Toba's Landing. Visually, this is the best map to ever be added in the game. It's heavy on visual detail and gives a strong feeling of being in space. But great visual design definitely came in first. Gameplay-wise, the map is terrible. Toba's Landing is a nightmare for killers, which this game has never seen since the Infinite Loops maybe. I'd rather play Garden of Joy or Shattered Square than this. First of all, Landing is like Borgo but worse in terms of color scheme. Looking for scratch marks is hard, not losing the survivor when they turn the corner is harder. How hard is it? Well, multiply Borgo by 2 and you'll find yourself halfway there. The map is stacked with objects and feels extremely claustrophobic. Basically, each and every object on the map is a line of sight blocker, making it terrible for ranged and mobility killers. For some reason, many of the textures on the map are not visual design, they are functional, containing safe pellets and oftentimes windows for no apparent reason. The thing that pisses me off with these filler pellets is the walls. They let you see the killer all the time. And since the map is stacked with stuff, these pellets often connect with mentioned windows, creating something similar to jungle gyms. And speaking of the devil, jungle gyms in Toba's Landing are weird as well. Their walls are embedded into the map design incredibly well. It took me time to realize what's what. And from what I could gather, map introduces some new jungle gym variations as well, but it was hard to keep in check, so I won't get into much detail here. Anyway, here's 3 more things to say about the new map. First one is the main building. It's a 2-story building elevated above the baseline of the map, which makes it a 3-story in fact. It has some decent yet playable windows as well as 2 safe pellets, one inside main building and the other one below the elevation. First one can be played around, second is godlike. Second issue is interconnectivity. Every single pellet and window is so close to the next one that running out of textures to loop the killer is not a possibility on Toba's Landing. Somehow, even corners of the map can spawn sets of 2 or 3 windows that connect to pellets which connect to other windows. Finally, the last part was brought to my attention by an incredible Russian player Night Fury. I linked his channel down below. We've been discussing the map and he showed me its scheme with all textures mapped out. Apparently, Toba's Landing has 2 complete dead zones on the edges. No pellets, no windows, generators or even hooks spawned there on the PTB, and those places serve no purpose. But I guess that comp corner enjoyers will love this map a lot, yeah. Overall, visual design came first, game design was just a supplement for it. Moving on to the perks, we have a total of 6 new, just as usual. I'll cover killer perks first. Singularity brings genetic limits, forced hesitation and machine learning. Right now you can see descriptions for each of them, feel free to pause and read, and I will explain how they work and how strong they are. Genetic limits does what it says. Whenever a survivor finishes healing anyone by any means, they get exhaustion. Heal yourself, exhaustion. A teammate, exhaustion. Heal normally, exhaustion. Use for the people, exhaustion. Use syringe, well, that I didn't really check, but probably the same, exhaustion. This perk is designed to counter one of the new survivor perks, however it mostly doesn't. Limits shine when paired with Fearmonger, but do you need 2 perks to counter Sprint Burst? Otherwise it's a mediocre perk at best. Next up is Forced Hesitation, and I really dislike this one. Again, it does what it says. It slows down all survivors in a small radius around the killer after a down, then goes on cooldown. The issue is, for most killers, FH will rarely do anything at all if they play normally. Sure, it will help you score a hit after a down if you interrupted healing or found a group as an insta-down killer like Myers. Hesitation will also benefit hook camping for obvious reasons and slug killers like Nurse, Blight, Plague and Oni. And this is my issue with this perk. In a game where a huge disbalance between top and low tier killers already exists and where devs are implementing anti-camp system, they also release a perk that benefits high tier killers and campers? What? Finally, machine learning. Again, it does what it says exactly. When you kick a gen, it starts glowing yellow. If this gen got completed, you get 7% haste and undetectable for 30 seconds. If you kick a gen with another one already marked, you move the mark to the new one. Only one mark exists at any given moment. Also, kicking a gen with a boost active doesn't mark a gen. Machine learning is honestly the best of the bunch, or at least it is the most consistent. It brings nice value to the table and stacks with boosts from other speed perks like Know It or Whiff. And I believe that ML will find its place in various builds and will be somewhat efficient, but it's nowhere close to game breaking. Sadly, I cannot say the same thing about survivor perks. These go from strong to mad to broken, or do they even start before broken? Let's get into it. Gabriel Soma brings Made for This, Scavenger and Troubleshooter. Yet again, descriptions are here, feel free to pause and I will explain the perks. Starting with Made for This, remember I said that Genetic Limits was created to counter one of the new survivor perks? Well, I meant this one. Made for This is nuts, it's broken beyond redemption. It activates if you are injured and don't have exhaustion on you. While you are injured, you get 3% speed boost infinite. If you heal a survivor while you are injured, you also get 10 seconds of endurance. And first, I wanna break down the speed boost. 3% doesn't sound that strong, does it? But some simple math will show the problem. Difference between a normal killer and survivor is 15%, or 0.6 meters per second. At that speed, a distance of 6 meters is covered by a killer in 10 seconds. Made for This removes 1/5 of this difference. With a closing speed of 0.48 meters per second, same 6 meter gap will be closed in 25% more time, 12.5 seconds. And now to the real situation. You launched at a survivor and scored a hit. How much distance does a survivor get? Well, in the next 2.7 seconds, your speed will be around 0.575 meters per second, and survivor will sprint at 6 meters per second for 1.8 seconds, then run the rest 0.9 seconds at 4 meters per second. After that, you start closing the gap. You will have to close 12.85 meters if a survivor runs straight forward, and this will take you 21.4 seconds. And now do the same math, but with Made for This. If the perk is present, you will have to cover slightly bigger distance, 13.17 meters. But the issue is in how long it will take you to cover that, 27.45 seconds. To put it simply, if a survivor runs straight line after you injure them, they get 6 seconds for free. If they decide to be smarter than that, you will have a hard time looping them. And yes, this 3% stacks with other speed boosts. Riddle me this, am I the only one who sees the problem here? And with all of this, we didn't even get to the second part of the perk, endurance and how it works for the people. If you do any normal heal of your teammate, either from down to injured or from injured to healthy, you get this set endurance, and you only need to finish the heal. However, on the PTB, for the people caused weird effects. If you used this perk to heal someone to full health, it did give you endurance. If you tried to do the same with a survivor on the ground, it gave no endurance. I presume that this is a bug, but I don't know which part of it, endurance or no endurance. Guess that we'll have to see. And believe me, you don't want for the people to activate endurance on live servers. It will turn Swifts into abominations far worse than old bully squads even. To sum it up, Made for This is bonkers. I hope to see it nerfed big time, and at least one of the effects needs to be gone completely. Moving on, we have Scavenger. If you rummage a chest, it will give you a yellow toolbox. This is simple and easy, works once per game, and this is fine. However, the second part is not. This perk rewards you for hitting great skill checks on gens in an unbelievable way. It replenishes your toolbox after 4 of them. You can bring one of the best toolboxes in the game and use it twice per match. Ozdarva did a solid breakdown of Scavenger and time saved by it in a dedicated video. I linked it below and won't go into much detail, but this perk is also insanely strong. It saves you around 38 seconds of gen time. Finally, we have Troubleshooter. Wording for this perk is a bit off, so initially I didn't think much of it, but after trying it on the PTB I realized one very important thing. You see, at first I thought that this perk deactivates 10 seconds after a chase has begun, but no, it deactivates 10 seconds after a chase is over. So, each and every pellet dropped in a chase gives survivor 6 seconds of aura read on the killer, and the killer cannot do anything to counter it, or at least know that. Do you like mind games around tall walls and pellets? Well, good luck doing that against someone with Troubleshooter. Troubleshooter also shows you the aura of the hottest gen while you are in a chase, which is nice for solo players, but nobody's gonna run this perk for gen info. All in all, each of the new survivor perks is mad strong. Finally, a worthy adversary for max teachable dominance. I really hope to see all of these nerfed on release. We reach the Singularity now, and Hux, that is its name, is awesome. Singularity felt extremely fun to play as and more or less okay to play against. However, there's the issue. Throughout the whole PTB, I had a draw 2 first times as Hux and never lost a game after. At the same time, there was only one time I lost to it as a survivor. And when saying that, I mean that I've only had one game where Hux player was able to kill more than one survivor. Singularity is incredibly complex in understanding and execution with tons of nuances to the use of its power. I believe most people just didn't get the hang of it on the PTB. Did I? Well, maybe at least better than most people. And from what I could gather, no matter how fun and interactive, Hux will be played much like Skull Merchant. The Singularity has 8 biopods, which can be placed on vertical textures not higher than 5 meters above the ground and in a 22-meter radius around the killer. You can take control of the biopod and scan for survivors. If you find one and aim for 4 seconds, you will put a slipstream on them. It is a funny infectious blob. After that, you have to wait 4 seconds for biopods to recalibrate, then you can aim again and teleport to said survivor. You can also aim with your power when controlling Hux himself and teleport as well. Teleportation is fast, close and has some benefits, like 5 seconds of 75% action speed increase and pellet insta-break. However, both blobs and biopods are deactivated using EMPs. There are 7 crates total that print them automatically, and survivors can speed the process up 4 times manually. There are plenty of EMPs during the match. These EMPs disable every blob and biopod in a 10-meter range and can be used while running. They are incredibly overpowered and omnipresent, and they do Hux dirty in chase. And they are the main reason as to why it will be played in a similar fashion to Adriana. Hux has insane 3-gen potential when placing multiple biopods to defend 1 gen. This requires survivors to put quite the time to deal with that. At the same time, Singularity has a pretty decent chase power despite the EMPs, so it will work well with chase rewarding perks like Pop or Pain Res. However, I cannot measure power level for this guy. Hux is just way too RNG dependent. Indoor maps are terrible. On open maps, Hux requires gens outside places like Shack and Jungle gyms, therefore farms are terrible as well. And the way EMP crates spawn is a huge pain point as well. Even if a gen is perfect for protection, it can have 3-4 crates in close proximity and therefore be completely safe for survivors. Worst part? I have no idea how to balance Singularity to not be a 3-gen menace, but keep its chase at the same time, apart from a huge design overhaul maybe. Singularity has a lot of small details I've left out in this one, and it deserves a separate dedicated video, which I'll synchronize with chapter release on June 13th. However, at this point in time, I expect that we won't see Hux too much in public lobbies, maybe we won't see him at all even. We have finally reached item logic rework, and trust me, although long needed and awaited by me at least, it is connected to Singularity's power more than to anything else. As of now, all of the items in the game use primary item slot. This means that you can carry either a medkit or a flashbang or a vaccine. This slot is affected by Franklin's demise. One exception to that is Seneca's tape. Tapes have their own dedicated slot, therefore they can be carried together with an item. This slot is also unaffected by Franklin's. However, starting with patch 7.0, all items will be divided into 3 categories: survivor items, special items, and temporary items. Survivor items are all items found in blood webs and chests, medkits, firecrackers, map and such. They occupy primary item slot and can be removed with Franklin's demise. Special items are killer-generated items, like vaccines, tapes, and, you guessed it right, EMPs. They occupy their own slot and are unaffected by Franklin's. If these items are usable, they prohibit you from using any other item while you hold a special one. Important note, Cenobite's Lament configuration counts as a special item and can't be removed using Franklin's demise. Fuck you, AFK Cenobite. But don't worry, normal playstyles for this killer won't suffer at all. Here's a hot take. Franklin's was never a good choice for Pinhead. Finally, temporary items are survivor-specific items obtainable during a match, such as flashbangs and wide glyph mirrors. They work in the same logic as killer-specific items. And last but not least, killer and perk updates. Ghostface kicks it off here with a series of small buffs, which you can see on the screen. The most notable I find is power cooldown reduction. These are small but nice and deserved buffs. I would really love to see Ghostface get a bit more, but I'm happy with what I see here. Moving on, Nemesis got 3 add-ons buffed. Broken Syringe is still bad. However, Zombie Heart and Tyrant Gore got some nice value improvements. I myself prefer to run Nemesis with Marvin's Blood and any other add-on that gives mutation rate from zombies, usually that's T-Virus sample due to its 100% effect. But these buffs put Heart and Gore on the map as well. Tyrant Gore might even be better than T-Virus now, we'll have to see. Next up we got Artist. Carmina got a lazy buff to a lazy add-on and another one to the Ink Egg. And this one is kinda bonkers. You see, my main criticizing point for the egg was that it decimates idle timer and requires you to run an add-on to fix that. But now the timer is 8 seconds, which removes the issue completely. Then we have Trickster with 2 add-ons buffed from completely useless to completely useless, and finally Pyramid Head got its base kit buffed. I've made a separate video on it, and to put it simple, this buff is insane, unfair and unnecessary. In no world this guy should get buffed before Trapper or even Demo. Finally, 2 perks got buffed, one for each role. Killers got a buff to pop Goes the Weasel. I find it hilarious that behavior all but got it pop a year ago, then got it every replacement, and here we are, back to Tinker Pop meta and buffing pop. Apart from that, buff is most welcome, 10% increase is huge. On the PTB, the perk felt awesome. Survivors had Deja Vu buffed. You can read the changes yourselves, and I will recite to you the reason. It is again hilarious. They buffed it as a countermeasure to 3-gen meta, while they work on a permanent solution. 3-gen meta is dead at this point. Only a handful of killers can defend 3-gens effectively, and they are the ones that need fixing, as well as maps like Saloon, which have reliable 3-gen spawns. And that concludes our tour across the PTB. We will soon know what goes live and what doesn't, and in the meantime...
I have a question for God. Why? God!